please. All right, thank you. Is there anyone that's going to address the board tonight? So, all right, thank you. So I was going to save my spiel if there was no one. So as I've said the last few meetings, and I just want to keep repeating it because I don't know who's heard it, is that me particularly has gotten criticism about the running of the open forum. So we want to follow our policy, which is 10 minutes total. Each person has 2 minutes, and I won't be asking questions or making comments because it's unfair if I do for some and not for others. That's a criticism we've had. So that's our procedure that we'll want to follow. So knowing that you have 2 minutes, I ask that you try to stay within the 2 minutes. I'll let you know when you have about 15 seconds, and then ask you to stop at 2 minutes. So with that, whoever would like to be first? And Carrie, can you hit the button? I just want to make sure you get on the camera. Oh, wait, let me try my...
Yep, it's on now. We good? Sure. I'm Carrie Ulrich. Dear Board and Chair, with this school year starting early in August, I'm concerned that we've had several district employees leave, both teachers and other employees. And I want to know what we're going to do to address the issue. I want to know how this issue is going to affect class sizes and how it will impact offerings and programs available to my child. I would like to know if teachers will be traveling between schools and how many teachers will be reassigned. Our school board needs to be holding exit interviews without administration present. I think there's a feeling that teachers cannot be honest, so I'm requesting that. I keep on seeing this over and over, behavior that's not acceptable towards our teachers, and I just wanted to make that statement. Okay, thank you.
Do I need to give you my name? Okay. All right, my name is George Marine. I've served over 28 years as a minister, 12 years in elected office. I've been with people in traumatic events. I've had to tell families a loved one died in an accident, been murdered, or committed suicide. These are tragic, life-changing events. I can't forget their look when they received this news. It's a look of terror and a deafening silence. I've accompanied people after a traumatic assault. There's a look that you don't forget. I recently sat with someone at a dinner table here in Albert Lee. I sat with her in silence. She held her face in her hands. I watched her anxious breaths and couldn't understand what was going on. I asked and she couldn't speak. I prayed as she struggled to breathe. This was real trauma. I know this look. This person was my wife. Now, I don't know what all happened in your seemingly illegal closed meeting of January 19th. Mark, I don't know what you allowed, but whatever happened traumatized my wife. Mark, my wife trusted you. I trusted you. I no longer do. In a recent meeting, a board member spoke dramatically of being violated by being recorded in an open meeting. I heard you, Mark, repeatedly how gravely disappointed you were, then publicly apologize. I heard you speak of disappointment and exposure over a recording, yet not one word for how another member may have been treated. No grave disappointment for a member of your board that was traumatized. What I have heard is that you would do it all again. You stated we would be remiss if we did nothing about this recording. As a husband and community leader, I would be remiss if I didn't oppose what you allowed on your watch. I hope you never have to see on one of your loved ones' faces what I beheld on my bride's face that evening. Mark Shoddy, I leave this to lay on your conscience. Thank you.
Sonia Hill from Albert Lee. Mr. Chair and board members, as you all know, I have previously presented and have also emailed you regarding my concern with Dr. Funk violating the Code of Ethics with his behavior, specifically Subpart 2, Letter G. A school administrator shall not knowingly make false or malicious statements about students, families, staff, or colleagues. He has made false and malicious statements, to which I pointed out to you in my email. As I've stated before, his behavior is not becoming of what a superintendent's behavior should be, and he should be held to a higher standard. Mark, I sincerely want to thank you for meeting with me this weekend, and I'd like to request that you share the information that we discussed with all the other board members. Lastly, I'd like to know what the next steps will be to address this issue and when I can expect a follow-up from you. Thank you.
Yeah, can you hit that? All right, so item 4, approval of today's agenda. It's an action item. Is there a motion to approve today's agenda? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. And Ashley, I'm sorry, back to one. Can you just please note that Linda's absent? Thank you. All right, item 5, consent items. Is there a motion to approve today's consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Aye. So we have one opposed. Motion carries. Item 6, reports. Dr. Funk.
A few months ago, I had attended the National School Board Conference and mentioned one of the key takeaways from the meeting was, or the conference was, board protocols and how important it is for boards to really have guidelines and protocols that they follow to move their meetings along. So what I did tonight, or have tonight for you in my report, go ahead and advance it, Ashley, are just 3 or 4 different protocols that, that 3 of them here actually, just an example, and we'll share this document with the board, but go ahead and pop on the first one there, the Auburn one. But, so these essentially are what boards use kind of as guiding principles, direction, authority. Board members have a collective, not individual authority. Authority to make decisions is only granted to the board as a whole. Communication, conduct at meetings. Every board member shall make every effort to attend all board meetings and workshops. Come prepared. So that one's in, I think, Auburn, Georgia. So go ahead and pop up the next one, Ashley. This one's in Tacoma, Washington. Board represents the needs and interests of all children, leads by example. Surprises to the board or the superintendent will be the exception, not the rule. Communication between staff and board are encouraged. Requests should go in through the superintendent. All complaints and criticisms received by the board or its individual members will be directed to the superintendent. Okay. And this one's actually from Minnesota. Again, very similar to what you've seen in some of the others there. just something to consider for future workshops or future meeting, something to take a look at if you want to adopt it. But that was an emphasis of a couple of the sessions that I attended while out in Boston a few months back. Questions or comments on any of that?
And you'll send us the links?
Ashley, you can do that, yep.
Okay. Questions, comments? None? Okay. No student members, so school board member reports. Jill?
Just waiting for the...
Oh, here, wait, that might be.
Okay, thank you. I attended the Partners in Prevention meeting earlier in the month. A lot of planning for the fair time. There's going to be an exhibit at the fair of a bedroom, a teenage bedroom, and kind of what paraphernalia might look like and where it might be found. Should be a pretty interesting exhibit to have there. There was no family collaborative meeting this month, I don't believe. And then I wanted to report on a response that I had to a question that I had asked at the May 16th meeting about the after-hours use of Brookside. And as you know, Mr. Chair, even though someone said they were prepared to answer it, you didn't want to have an answer that night, but instead wanted to talk about asking questions during meetings. So I do have, well, I waited Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, still did not have an answer. So Thursday night, I followed up on it, and you had indicated that I should ask Lori Volz, who wasn't in on Friday. So a week after the meeting, I received an answer through you that Monday night regarding that after use of Brookside prom night. And I'll share a little bit about it. I won't mention any names. I don't think that would be appropriate. It says that the gym was reserved by an employee for a post-prom gathering of about 12 students. That support staff was contacted, who generally handles the facility usage, and that the employee and spouse were supervisors of the event. The support staff let some other staff know about the issue in case there were any questions about what was going on with cars in the parking lot that night. There were no custodial costs, so there was no bill for the event, and no additional cost was incurred for insurance since the district property and liability policy covers the event as it was held on school property. And in addition, liability coverage exists since the event was supervised not only by staff but a licensed staff member. So it states that the employee went above and beyond what's usually expected for staff using school facilities after hours by making arrangements through the facility management office. And I guess that's really concerning to me, and I'd like to have that on a future board meeting agenda. I don't believe that that coincides with policy 902, which states that the school board sets the policy for who is going to be using the facilities. In this particular event, from what I'm hearing, is it was couples and it was overnight and it was more than just the gym. Other parts were used. So I think it's an alarming precedent, and I am concerned about that. And I believe the facilities belong to the community, and I don't know that the community would approve of this kind of use, and I think it's kind of a dangerous practice to get into. Thank you.
Thanks. A couple things. About a month ago, I got to attend the Employer Day for the Air Wing with Mr. Quorum. Had a great day up there. That was a lot of fun. Our Albert Lee, or I'm sorry, I better say it right, Austin Albert Lee Special Ed Co-op has got their bids in for the facility, and so that will be not opening. I don't anticipate right away next year, but at least using the Austin facilities. Chamber Business Ed Committee meeting, we had one of those. Had a lot of fun attending our 2 graduations. It's always good to see those kids achieve that. That's what we're here for. And finally get to see some end-of-the-year ball games and track meets and everything, so it's a good month, kind of a busy one that way. So, thanks.
Yep, I also have a few things to report, if I can pull that up. As Dave mentioned already, it's always the best day of the year when we get to go to graduation, so that was wonderful, the ALC graduation and then the high school ALHS graduation, so those were great events and a wonderful evening to celebrate those achievements. I also attended the retirement reception that was on May 25th for the district employees who were retiring this year up at the high school. So I just want to publicly thank all of those employees for their many years of service and dedication to the students and families of the district. So that was another great event. I also had a meeting with the board chair about an idea. I continue to be concerned about retention in the district. And so as we continue to have resignations, I think we need to really look at that with laser focus. And an idea that I threw out to Mark is maybe we should put together a retention task force. I'm not sure exactly how that would all look, but I would be happy to volunteer to chair that task force. So I would like us as a board to talk more about that and see, kind of frame up if that is something we think we want to explore more, but I'd be happy to take a lead role in doing that. And those were my updates.
Julie, you want to hit yours maybe?
Turn
There
right
you
off.
go. Okay, thank you.
Did it work?
The state statute requires I present a summary of the board's conclusions about last month's closed meeting. The board met in closed session to evaluate the performance of Rick Barnhill. Principal Grosclose, Athletic Director Wachholtz, and HR Director Quirum presented information related to Mr. Barnhill. The information pertained to interactions and actions of Mr. Barnhill as it related to his employee status. Board members had an opportunity to ask questions. No consensus conclusion was reached by the board during that closed session. Providing any more details at this point would be inconsistent with the statute as it relates to Mr. Barnhill's rights of disclosure. And then my only other announcement is that, just to remind everyone, there is no meeting July 4th, obviously, and 5th. So, okay, item 7. Effective and efficient operations, Lori. 7.1.
Mr. Chair, members of the school board, Dr. Funk. For your consideration would be approval of the original budget for the 16-17 school year. And so we have that up. Ashley, if you want to scroll to page 5. I'll just hit some of the highlights. The good news is that we have a balanced budget for the general fund. Specifically, if you'll take a look at the unassigned line there for the general fund, you'll see that the revenues are projected to exceed expenses by about $90,000. And when it's about a $40 million budget, that's basically break even. We have just a little bit of cushion there. Now, I want to point out that we have some grants that were still in the works to be submitted. We had our very good estimate for staffing on those grants in place. For example, we have our Title I, II, and Title III grants will be submitted, which will include some additional things that might be supplies or travel, some minor budget adjustments on that. But overall, it's a very complete budget, and it does reflect our first year of involvement with the special ed co-op. So it has an estimate there regarding our tuition payments to that entity for the students that will be served there that are resident. Other than that, I just want to hit as a highlight there. Again, it's a solid budget, and I have assigned some revenue for technology and curriculum. You'll see that on the revenue and the expense line. I'm just identifying that as I have done that in the past for some special initiatives, you could say, along those two categories. Food service, I just want to point out that this is projected to have a profit this year, and that is based on the renewal, Chartwell's renewal that was approved by the board. There might be some things that will come back with an amendment if we find that we need to be purchasing some equipment or technology, that kind of thing, or if there's any severance pay. Then when I bring the amended budget back in February, that might show a little of an alteration there. Community ed, basically they have a slight spend down plan for the restricted for community ed and ECFE. They have very healthy fund balances there, so that is a fine plan to have in place to provide additional programming. That's why the additional expense. And other than that, the building construction fund is basically, that project is complete. There are some minor expenditures this fiscal year that are wrapping up. And in this next fiscal year, we'll be assessing that remaining fund balance, which most likely we'll be sending back as that project is complete. The good news is that we had enough funding to complete that last HVAC upgrade. And other than that, the only other thing I want to point out is in Fund 25, the OPEB revocable trust. Basically, what we have, two things there. Each year, we have to set up a liability for future obligations for other post-employment benefits. So what that means is that the trust is there for future years of paying insurance for retirees, for those that have that in their contract language. And we actually set up a liability knowing that we'll have to be pulling it in the future. As you can see, our fund balance is at about break even. It's about just only at 4,000. What that means is this is probably going to be about the last year that we'll have to set up this liability. And then going forward will be just when we do draws that we'll have an actual drawdown of the cash that's in that trust. It's kind of a complicated accounting process there. And we also do have included in the expense side of the OPEB trust fund, Fund 25, we do have a reflection of a pull from for the retiree health insurance, actual expenses that we'll be incurring this year to replenish the general fund for those, as well as implicit rate subsidy. So that is just to explain what that that negative 984,000 is a very standard thing. So that's basically highlights of the budget. You can look at it at your leisure, the formats as I've had it in the past. Any questions?
Can you remind me which fund has to be, and I think it's 16% or is it 14, and why that's which one is that and why is that important?
That is the unassigned general fund, and the reason for that being important has to do with making sure we have adequate cash to pay our bills, our payroll expenses. And so we were, as you may recall, possibly from our last year's audit, we were right at 14%. The board policy was at 14%. And so we're maintaining right at that level. So we are right on track with our board policy of a fund balance at 14%. Fund balance is not exactly equal to cash, but what there's a correlation there. So years when the state budget is healthier and they're paying us on a metering basis of 90% of our current year's entitlement, they pay us, and then they delay the remaining 10% another year. That's a typical payment schedule from the Minnesota Department of Education to public schools. Now, in the years where they have a tax shift and they adjust that metering to a lower level, where they're not paying us 90% of what we're due in that year, there may be only paying, we had a couple of years back, we had a situation where I believe it was like 73% is all they were paying us in the current year, and then we had to wait another year to receive the remaining. In that year, for example, even though we had a fund balance at that time, it was like 16%, we actually were short on cash because the state was delaying in paying us, and we had to borrow $6 million to pay just our payroll expenses. So that kind of gives you an explanation of how cash can be tied to the health of the fund balance and why we need a fund balance, because the state can make those decisions. And when the state is in an economic crisis, they don't go borrow money. They prorate our metering schedule and make us wait another year to get all our money. So then we're the ones that have to go out and borrow money, even if we are in a healthy financial situation. So it is a kind of a complicated situation, but school districts need to be prepared for that scenario could come at any biennium. So that is the need for that fund balance.
So that's an action item, so.
Thank you. Hi, you can hear me, right? I'm Gail Brownlow, and I'm the Gifted and Talented Coordinator for Albert Lea Schools. And I am here to share a success from this last year, and it's CLEP tests. It's College Level Examination Program. And I never say all those words, I always say CLEP. So what are CLEP tests? CLEP exams cover material that is generally taught in the first 2 years of college courses. So students are able to take a test. If they score well enough, they can gain college credits at many colleges and universities. So advanced placement is another term you've heard. We do give AP tests here. So I did put at the bottom of this slide how they differ, the CLEP and the advanced placement exams. AP tests, students have to take a course, and then at the end of the course, they take an AP test on a certain date that is nationwide. CLEP tests, any student can take any CLEP tests on any date that we have a computer lab and a proctor available. Students receive results immediately for most CLEP exams, and I believe for AP we wait until July. Does that sound about right? The difference, too, is that some colleges and universities do not accept CLEP credits. So students who are interested in taking these tests first need to do a little research to see if the college or university that they have chosen accepts the credit. I did a little research to see the common schools that our students often go to. A lot of those, yes, accept CLEP credits, but I can't give you a list because some, like University of St. Thomas, will give credits for math and econ CLEP tests, but not for others. So it really just varies depending on the school. So we had 13 students test for the Spanish CLEP exam. We did this last year and this year as well. We're just focusing on that at this point. 7 of those students achieved high enough scores to earn 12 college credits at their chosen colleges. Each
student earned 12, which is amazing. One student achieved a perfect score. They're going to save money and time in college. All 7 of those students are Spanish speakers in their homes. The other students that tested are not native speakers, and I think with a little more work, we can get those students passing as well. I offered study sessions for about 2 months prior to the test, and I also had an online platform that I could track who was studying and who was not, and I'll tell you that there wasn't a lot of time put in on their parts. The heritage learners, the children who are speaking Spanish from the time they grow up, they did not prepare, but they did fine. They can walk in and take this test and do very well. We have had students in the past who are not native speakers who have also done well. It just didn't show this year. So this is really tiny for you, but I pulled up the data from the students who succeeded this year. I have 2 that are going to University of Wisconsin-Superior. 3 are at Riverland at this point, and I think 2 are at Mankato. And this is a rough estimate of what credits cost at each school, because some of them have fees included, some do not, and some depend on what program they are looking at. But that total savings is over $35,000 when you add up all those credits. And these may be students who need that. Well, I think any student needs that help for getting through. So we were very excited by how well they did. So what next? Our biggest struggle with the CLEP test, first of all, we're new at it, and the technology for the testing platform is a big struggle right now. We had one of our tech people and myself working in a lab for quite some time to get it all prepared and ready. CLEP is rolling out a new testing platform, which will roll over into in October, and we have high hopes that it will be better. Once we confirm that it is an easier testing platform, then I think we can advertise the other exams. There are 33 subject exams for CLEP. So my goal would be to look at those topics, those subjects that we're not hitting through advanced placement or college in the school credits, and see if we can help students in the other areas that they are not receiving credits at this point. We would like to continue to recruit our Spanish-speaking students to take this test and get more word out, promote it through parents in bilingual brochures. We need to just share with them this great opportunity because they can do so well. I think that's my last slide on here. Yeah. Questions for me on the CLEP test? You can retake it. And I had one student on the edge. She was going to retake it, and at the last minute, I think May and senioritis caught up with her, and she chose not to. But I think they can retake it several times, actually. So one student, I think attending Luther, was like 1 point away, and I wish she would have taken it. She could have gotten credits. They're not always guaranteed 12 college credits. Some have 4 credits or 6 credits. They have different levels depending on how well you score. So these 12 credits that each of these students earned means they all did very, very well on it.
You don't have an idea right now of what we don't offer in the college and school, the AP versus a CLEP? I mean, is there maybe only 6 areas? Do you have any initial ideas?
I haven't looked at that. I think that would be a discussion I would need to have with the counselors at the high school. When I looked at the subjects that are offered, there are 11 tests in the history and social sciences. So different. They even split history up into different years in the past. There's 5 for computation and literature, and those are the ones that they don't get an immediate result because there's writing involved. There are 6 in the science and math areas, 4 for business and econ, and then 6 for world language. 2 each for Spanish, German, and French, so different levels they can take. $80. This year we used a grant to help pay for that. If we expand, we'll have to have that discussion, so.
I think it's a great opportunity for our students to get ahead in college and save all the money, and thank you for your work.
Okay, and then I just want to follow up and say I just got back from Costa Rica with 21 high school students, and they're all back safe and sound. We had a great trip, and these students even had a service opportunity while they were there. They planted trees in the rainforest, a reforestation project, so just wanted to give you a little update on that. Thank you.
Isn't it? Okay. It's our, oh, there we go. It's our 10th year participating in this program. Its purposes are to improve instructional practices and increase student achievement. The main components are site goals, student achievement goals, which in our district we adopt a IGP, which is how we go about those student achievement goals. We have a career advancement positions, leadership positions like mine, and then we have 8 building coordinators, and each of those building coordinators serves as half their day as a teacher, instructing students, and then the other half is leading their building in the ATPPS program. Observations are a big part of that job of those building coordinators, and then that job-embedded staff development, which the avenue that we go to do that is through our PLCs. So, let's see, next one. Preliminary site goals I'd like to share with you. This is preliminary data. These are the programs or sites that have met their goal. We have early childhood special ed, early childhood family ed, and adult basic education that have met their goals. Did not meet Lakeview, Sibley, Hawthorne, Halverson, Southweston High School. I do want to remind you that these goals are rigorous goals. One of the celebrations that you can't see here is at the high school, they wrote 3 goals this year. And the state requires you to meet all of those goals to receive your ATPPS funds. They had a science goal, a reading goal, and a math goal. They wanted to include really all the tests that they give at this, standardized tests. And the one success for sure out of there is that they met in the science area, but the reading and math they didn't. But so I was happy about that they did have the 2% actually I think it ended up being about 4% improvement in the science test there at the high school. So some of the things, I've got the whole entire report here for you for any copies anybody would need. But the main things that I've gleaned from the annual review findings is 85% of the teachers met their IGP goals. Teachers are asking for more feedback during observations. Need for focused instructional strategies being modeled and implemented. We currently, this past year, we had several instructional coaches in the Albert Lea area schools, and we've seen a lot of success with those. ATPPS coordinators and instructional coaches have very similar job duties. And so, as you'll see in the next slide, I'll share with you one of the changes we're going to make for next year as a result of that. But teachers value their PLC time and have made great progress in the PLC cycle work. Anytime I go outside the district to any type of conference or any type of networking, people are always impressed with the the level of implementation that we have in our district for PLCs. A lot of them are like, how did you get to that point of being able to do those things? So what do I tell them? I think ATPPS has helped. So there are districts who are trying to do PLCs without ATPPS. And as a result of us having this and having people like myself in leadership roles, we're able to implement it at a more effectiveness, or higher effectiveness, So that would be the main reason. And just here is an example of what that PLC cycle work looks like. I know it's pretty small, but it primarily just reminds us that PLCs are using data, student work to lead and to improve those instructional practices. So one of the, I mentioned it earlier that we've had some good success with the instructional coaches this school year, and then that teachers are looking for more feedback and more ways to improve their instructional skills. And so as a result of that, we're making a little change here with the coordinators. We're going to shift towards an instructional coach model. And here's the purpose of instructional coaches. The purpose of the instructional coach is to study factors related to professional learning and how to improve academic outcomes for students through supports provided by instructional coaches. Instructional coaches are on-site professional developers who teach educators how to use evidence-based teaching practices to support them in learning and applying these practices in a variety of educational settings. So the instructional coaches that are currently working for the district, my understanding is that they're staying, those positions are staying. But then in addition to that, we're going to train the coordinators, the 8 that I talked about at the building level, and myself as instructional coaches for next year. So, and that's just one of the, like I said, within our review findings, we're finding that teachers are looking for more feedback, and this instructional coach model will provide the support for that. And here's just a little more information about those positions. The coordinators that currently have, they're in their second year of a 2-year contract. They had the choice to elect into and be trained as an instructional coaches. Those new hires were hired as instructional coaches, and all coordinators have decided that they do want to elect to do the instructional coach training for next year. So there was a little bit of choice there with some of that. For those who had already been hired as a coordinator, that it being their second year of that contract, they had the choice. Okay. Any questions about ATPPS? The biggest shift came about 5 years ago when we adopted a learning by doing model, and that really shifted PLCs to looking at student data and student work, especially with common formative and common summative assessments, which really, when it comes down, at our chapter tests and quizzes primarily, if and instead of looking at the standardized tests, but really looking at the tests that they administer. And I'd say that's probably one of our biggest growth areas that we've had over the last 5 years, that teachers are really, the big shift I've seen is that we're using assessments for learning instead of learning, and really using them as a tool to help us guide ourselves in better instruction and student achievement. And PLCs were kind of reconfigured at that point to really be around content area. At the secondary level at that point 5 years ago, some of us were still in PLCs with people from other departments and other areas. And so that was the big shift that I think has been a catalyst to really some of the improvements that we've seen. Mm-hmm.
They're all nationally written in the PLCs?
Nationally written.
How do they formulate?
The PLCs, it's a professional learning community, and most of them are based on like how they're organized, like who's in the PLC. Yeah, content area. Yes, it would be like in the elementary level, they have K1 PLC, and they have one facilitator. They often, though, will split up when needed to work on what they, and then 2, 3, 4, 5. And then at the secondary level, we're organized primarily by content area. So science at the middle school and science at the high school, English, yeah. And that, through the conferences we've been to, that has been the most beneficial way to organize PLCs. The harder ones to organize is the ones where people are singletons, where they're the only one in the district. And so we have looked at ways to try to network outside the district with that, so. Okay, thank you.
Again, this is more consistent with maybe the CLEP discussion, but this expands the opportunities for students to earn credit for learning.
And I can't remember last month if anybody had any changes. I don't remember any. Okay. So then in July, it'll come back for its third reading for approval. So if you have questions or comments, let us know before then. Okay? And we're adjourned. Thank you.